For me, PR is all about relationships. And so we're always looking for opportunities to connect Cogniters to best tell the Cognite story. I like to show up where people are and go to the robotics meetings and go to the engineering meetings. People start to raise their hand and say, I think I might have something to offer. We try and find those that have the most interesting perspectives.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Growth Hacks, a podcast from TCV where we discuss strategies and secrets to unlocking high growth with CMOs, CROs, and growth-minded leaders. I'm Kunal Mehta, and I'm a principal at TCV focused on go-to-market strategy.
And I'm Katja Gagan, principal at TCV and head of marketing. Join us as we bring you the growth and marketing playbooks from technology's best and brightest, and chat with operators as they are in the process of innovating. This is Growth Hacks.
Hey everyone, today we're being joined by a PR expert in a truly global industry. It is my pleasure to introduce Michelle Holford, who's the global head of public relations at Cognite. Michelle has held roles in agencies that covered massive brands like Ford, Bank of America, and Walgreens. We'll cover a lot today, so get your popcorn ready. Michelle, welcome to Growth Hacks.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Sure. Hey, Michelle, where does this podcast find you today?
Today, you find me in the great state of Texas. Our global headquarters are in Oslo, Norway, where I live, but I'm connecting with our North American headquarter team today in Austin as well as Houston.
Fantastic. A true global citizen. Well, for our listeners that may not know what Cognite does, give us the elevator pitch.
We're in the business of industrial transformation. We're here to change the world. And that means we're here to solve the challenge of asset-intensive industries and their data issues, right? So data-intensive industries are oil and gas, power and utilities, and manufacturing. And they have the challenge of consuming and creating all sorts of data that isn't connected. We provide the solution through Cognite Data Fusion, which is our industrial data ops platform that liberates data. It contextualizes it and makes it actionable for everyone across the company. And why companies choose us is because we turn their raw data into business value. In those industries, whether it's oil and gas that needs to work on sustainability or product optimization, we're here to connect and contextualize that data so they can use it, as well as manufacturing with supply chains or power and utilities with grids and smart maintenance. And if I can just give a quick illustration, in our personal lives, when we want to find what the weather looks like, we turn to our iPhone. And it connects our data and tells us what it's going to look like in different parts of the world for weather or where to eat through Yelp. It's all connected. So that's happening in our consumer world. But in industry, especially asset-intensive industry, it's kind of like 1984. There's large amounts of data that come from different sources, whether it's images or Excel sheets, and they're not connected. And so we're here to take that raw data and turn it into business value for heavy asset industry because they haven't had their iPhone moment.
That's awesome. And Michelle, you lead communications and PR. How do you strategically plan PR, and what are some of the key initiatives you are driving at Cognite?
When I joined Cognite a year and a half ago, we were only 3.5 years old, small but mighty and on a huge trajectory. And so it was very important to create visibility immediately. We had wonderful clients, some of them super majors from around the world, but we needed to tell the world about what we were doing. We're very visible in the Nordics and around Europe, but we're planting a flag in the North American region, as well as Singapore, Japan, and the UK. So immediately, I needed to create visibility both for myself and our Marcoms team in the company so that we had the buy-in and connectedness with sales, product marketing, the executive management team. And so visibility was number one. And I had to make sure that I was playing both sides of the track to create visibility, both for Cognite, but also for our function within the company. And so we had to really get our in-house together. We built a studio at Cognite to make sure that we could media train and make sure everybody was on board. And that included connecting initially with partners, whether it was Microsoft or Pinnacle or whoever we were partnering with, to make sure that I understood their best stories and how we could work together. It meant developing a media bench of spokespeople across ages and expertise in different locations around the world. It was really about strengthening an already great program and adding the tools and expertise necessary to create visibility for both the company and myself with journalists around the world. So they knew I was representing Cognite and can count on me when I reached out to them.
Awesome. Hey, maybe you can just share, what is Cognite Radio? What was the idea behind it?
So when we all went to a global pandemic, we're built on keeping asset intensive companies connected through data. And if we can't do that ourselves, there's a problem. And so we have some brilliant people on our team that excel in hosting and communications. And so we decided that if we couldn't fly to the US or Japan or Singapore, we were going to create a way that all of our data wasn't in silos. So we created Cognite Radio, which was a daily program to make sure that people didn't feel isolated working from home during COVID, and that they knew what was happening at Cognite, what was happening with our clients. And we shared the love worldwide. We even had a Cognite After Dark where we played music, but it was a way to connect everybody. And we had speakers come and join us and tell great stories. So it was a way to make sure that we were all connected and not working in silos, so that we could innovate in the best way possible outside of our regular meetings, which we were having, but to really create some culture and excitement around what was going to happen next.
That's awesome. And Michelle, in that vein, it looks like you have a really deep bench of speakers. And I know in some of our portfolio companies, finding someone who can speak with the media is not an easy task. How did you get people engaged, and how do you get people to want to work with you and want to get in front of the media?
I know it's really common to just have your CEO or your executive management team kind of be trotted out into the media, and that's fabulous. Jan-Marcus Lerbeck, our CEO, is wonderful, and so is Francois in the United States. But we needed to have different perspectives to tell the story of Cognite. And so how we cultivated interest is that we started hosting kitchen talks and story mining sessions throughout the company. And some of them would be after hours, and sometimes it would be during the day, but we would invite all of our stakeholders to say, come learn what PR is about, come learn what brand is about, come learn what social media is about and what we do in events. And we would talk through what we do and how it might help them in their own position, whether it's sales, whether it's customer success, so they could understand what was being said about Cognite in the media or how to post on LinkedIn. For me, PR is all about relationships. And so I like to show up where people are and go to the robotics meetings and go to the engineering meetings and the product marketing meetings and say, I'm here to be your resource. And so through those relationships and them learning more, people start to raise their hand and say, I think I might have something to offer. So we ask for volunteers, but we also target folks that we think have something to say. So we have Carolina Torres, who used to work for BP for 30 years, now wanted to move her expertise from one of our customers to worldwide. And so her history with BP and a woman in oil and gas, she is a great candidate and so relatable and wonderful. But so are our younger individuals that are just starting, that are concerned about the energy transition and want to talk about sustainability. We try and find those that have the most interesting perspectives. So we're always looking for opportunities to connect Cogniters to best tell the Cognite stories.
That is golden. I'm just curious, what do you mean by story mining?
Story mining means going to meet people where they are in their expertise and really asking them what problems they're solving. When you're in robotics or you're in engineering or you're in your lane in manufacturing, you can be so focused on problems you're solving that you're not going to think to call the PR team. So it's incumbent on the PR professional to go where those meetings are already happening. They're probably having weekly meetings to touch base with their team. Sit in on those meetings. Invite yourself to different opportunities or offsites they're having and ask questions. What do you mean by that? Oh, you're solving this problem for Statnett, the national grid of Norway. What does that look like? How much money did you save? Ask them questions, almost like you're the reporter asking, tell me more. What does this look like? What's the impact? Do we have images? Do we have B-roll? So you have this bank of information that you can think about creatively how to weave together to tell stories year round.
That is such a great growth hack. I think when Katya and I look at public relations, one of the bleeding arteries we see is PR is often cast to the agency and doesn't yield the anticipated result. Maybe you can walk us through the must-haves for a healthy PR function.
I think it starts with credibility of public relations. PR is what other people say about you when you're not in the room. And there's a lot of tools in our toolbox, right? It includes the agency, and I have been on the agency side. And now that I'm in-house, I value that piece of the puzzle. But it really is one piece. It's one tool in telling the best story for your organization. So of course you want to stand shoulder to shoulder with them and make sure they're equipped and greened and can represent you at all times. But you're going to need to make sure that you are all aligned, your Marcoms team and your public relations team aligned on visibility, the goals of the executive management team, and making sure that everybody on your team, whether it's earned media, where public relations generally lives, shared media, which is connecting with your partner team and who they're all connecting with, owned media, where we're publishing things on our own platforms like Ignite News or through social media, and then paid media, our digital campaigns or advertising. So a healthy public relations function means everybody is working in sync in an integrated way and connecting with go-to-market plans with the different verticals to make sure you understand what their goals are. We're setting the strategy, but we're making sure we're connected to the company goals, sales goals, marketing goals, and at the same time trying to be as creative as possible with our storytelling.
So Michelle, one of the strategic uses of PR that Cognite uses is media tours. And you guys even fly in media to your events, which is amazing. For companies that don't routinely conduct these media tours, maybe you can just walk us through your playbook.
Media tours are a very important way to connect with journalists around the world to increase visibility. The story is really in the strategy. What are you trying to say during a media tour? It involves 3 steps for us at Cognite. It's the prep, it's the pitching, and it's the resource. And let me talk through what that means. We're creating a story in a box before you even conduct a media tour. What are you trying to say? What is the news? What's the creative angle? And that story in a box, the prep part needs to have impact. What are you communicating and what impact does it have on the industry? Who is going to help tell you that story? Is it a client? Is it a partner? Is it an influencer? Do you have stats to support it? What kind of dollars saved or hours saved for the solution you're talking about? What does that look like? Are there images? Are there B-roll? Prepare for a media tour by making sure you have your story in a box already buttoned up. That's how you prepare. Second, which is kind of the end part of the prep, is you should not be reaching out to journalists. That should not be the first time they're hearing from you. Do your homework ahead of time and create relationships with journalists locally and internationally by connecting with them online, on calls, to make sure that they know who your company is and what you're about, so that when they get an invitation to a media tour, it's not cold. Then you're pitching them. So then it's time for them to actually learn that you're going to do a media tour. And what you are selling should be specific. You are going to have this amount of time with these executives. You're going to meet with them and they're going to talk about how Norway is the new Silicon Valley, specifically Oslo, and what that looks like for investing in Europe, or why people are putting their money on Europe as far as industrial digitalization and moving the needle. Think about specifically what that pitch is, who is going to be there, and what it's going to do for that reporter. Is it included in their beat? What's it going to do for the audience? And then just know that once you complete these tours, that it may not result in media coverage. You will be used more often than not as a resource for the next time they're talking about something related to that issue.
Wonderful. We're going to give you a few rapid fire questions. Michelle, tell us, what book are you reading right now?
I'm obsessed with Katie Couric's new book, Going There. Just connection with journalism and a woman in the business. I'm just started.
And what's your go-to book that changed your life and that you go back to a lot?
Wow. I like The Road Less Traveled. Like, I'm one of those people, let's not do it the normal way. Let's think outside the box. And I think about that book a lot. I read it in college and I think about it a lot.
I also know that Cognite just published one. What's that all about?
So industrial data ops is going to be the way of the future, how data is connected in business worldwide, especially in asset-intensive industries. And so we wanted to create a really easy user guide manual for companies to kind of do a wellness check on their digital maturity and how connected their data is. And so there's easy to read guide that walks you through what industrial data ops is and how you can use it to get business value from your data. It's really a guide for industry. It's downloadable and it's free at our website, cognite.com.
Awesome. What skill are you trying to develop right now?
I'm trying to learn Norwegian since I live in Norway now, so that's a brief answer. Otherwise, I'm trying to really sharpen my skills on how to help launch this platform from a created content view from our side, from Cognite.
I would like to know, what's your favorite metric when it comes to communications and PR?
Selfishly, I think some people think it's outdated, but I like the AVE. I like the add value equivalency. I like to put a number in front of folks to say, if you would have bought these column inches or this white space or this airtime, this is what earned media brings. I like to bring value to what the industry does. I also like to see what the competitors are doing. And if we're beating them and share a voice in the news that month, they're also followers. Like, that's also intriguing too.
That's awesome. And Michelle, you've lived both in the US and of course now in Europe. What do you like about both, and how do you adjust your PR programs to suit both markets?
I appreciate that question. I moved to Norway a year and a half ago. And what I appreciate about Europe is how technologically advanced it is, and especially Norway. I haven't touched cash, dollars, or coins in a year and a half until I got here. It's so easy to use your phone for everything you do in Norway, whether it's your taxes, which is a one-step shop, whether it's public transportation. They're constantly innovating. And because there's so many countries that are connected, they're sharing information. What I appreciate about the US is probably the options. So I have a suitcase ready to be filled with things they don't sell in Norway that are my favorite brands or things that I miss from Norway. But obviously I miss my friends and family. There's advantages of both, and I love being able to live in both countries. In the US, we're much more comfortable saying, we're amazing, this is what we do, and this is why you should know about us. And in Norway, it's a very modest, humble country. It's very flat structured. As an American, I'm constantly pushing, saying, we're the first unicorn in Norway. We have to tell that news. And you have folks saying, oh, that would be bragging. We're not sure we want to talk about that. Can we talk about it in a different way? So I have to think through what is going to resonate and what is going to land with journalists in a way that isn't so boastful, but also push our teams in Norway to tell our good news and to tell our story. And so it definitely modify how our PR team operates in each country by who the audience is and what's appropriate.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Michelle. We covered a lot today, as we promised earlier. Thanks for being on the show today, Michelle.
Well, as they would say in Norway, tusen takk, which means thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to Growth Hacks. You can follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. To learn more about us and TCV's CEO and Founder podcast, go to tcv.com or email us at growthhacks@tcv.com.